Welcome to Soundcheck, the podcast for and about local struggling artists. Today's episode features Emma Saunders, and Emma is a dancer, curator, choreographer, educator, and an excellent mother and friend. Having one of the most influential women I know in today's episode was extremely insightful, beneficial, and grounding. I met Emma in my second year of university, and upon meeting her and getting familiar with her practice, I reignited my own personal passion for performance art, which I can credit to her openness, explorative nature, and overall enthusiasm. Emma is an artist that encourages me to push myself further, and working under her direction for my grad show One Hit Wonders was a definitive moment in my artistic voyage, you might say. Thanks for coming on, Emma. Thanks in general. Thanks for teaching me and so many others the value of performance, the value of absurdity, vulnerability, and of course, duende. Enjoy the episode.
Emma Saunders. Set the scene for me. Where are we? What are we doing? I understand we've got a bit of noise pollution today, but we're just recording in a bit of an inconvenient spot, but that's
great.
Uni. That's uni. Where are we?
What do you mean where are we?
What are we doing? Where are we? What's the context of the situation? That's what I ask everyone. I ask everyone to set the scene so the listeners at home get a kind of sense of where we are on campus.
Okay, you want to know where we are on campus?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're sitting outside the movement lab. We're watching this class play frisbee. We're watching people relax. We're watching people live their lives.
Yeah, we are.
And then over there, there's nothing. So there's nothing over there. And here we are, I'm looking at you.
Yep.
Here at a table.
And it's a real honest pleasure, and I thank you for coming on, because you're one of the most influential people that I've met here while I've been at uni for 4 years. I'm sure you already know that. Before meeting you, I really wasn't sure of what direction I was going in, but meeting you kind of reaffirmed and rekindled my passion for performance and performance art. So thank you for coming on.
That is my pleasure, Amber. It is my pleasure. It's my privilege.
Oh, dull. So first of all, just introduce yourself, define your practice. What do you do? I know.
It's a big question, that one.
It is.
So in a nutshell, depending on how long we've got, my name is Emma Saunders. I call myself a dance artist, and I make work that spans inside the theatre and outside the theatre. And I like to make work that is on a whole range of different kinds of bodies. Mm-hmm. My background, I suppose, is pretty strict dance. So I have a dance degree, and I've danced, pretty classic sort of jazz, tap, ballet from 4 till 16 or whatever, and then it all shifted when I went to uni and I discovered more contemporary dance, a more creative way of moving and making work and approaching movement as well. And then I worked a lot with the fondue set. 3 of us went to uni, started a company. 2 of us went to uni, started a company. Well, not a company. What is it? It's a group. It's a group. Yeah. There's nothing official about it.
Yeah.
And then we noticed I liked the skirt she was wearing, so I figured that's pretty good. And Elizabeth could do anything. She was the one at uni that could do anything and did everything.
Yeah.
I was the one that fluffed around, arrived late, stood up the back because I could never remember anything, and copied Elizabeth the whole time. But always was interested in making my own work and thinking for myself a little bit. At the end of uni, there was only about 4 of us that were interested in teaching as well as making work. And I know for sure that is also why I'm still making work, because I get so much out of my teaching. So after my dance degree, I did a dip ed. My mum said, do it so you can get a trade. So I can keep making work, actually. And there's not many of us left now, and I'm one of them. And I really think that's because of my work here at uni.
Yeah.
I can afford to go and do projects when I need to. I may not be a millionaire, but geez, I feel good. I'm happy and I'm creative.
Oh, that's good.
So I think that's important to know. But if I didn't have my teaching, I think I'd be a bit worried about how I'm going to earn all the time.
Yeah.
So with Fondue Set, we made lots of work, highly theatrical work, quite theatre-based work. And then we all had a break and we all wanted to have babies. And to cut a long story short, I feel like the last couple of years of my work has been trying to be relevant outside the artistic industry bubble. So I always wanted to be relevant within the industry. That's where you have to start. Mm-hmm. And then once I got that, I felt that now I need to be relevant outside the industry and start to talk a little bit more of the importance of the arts in the broader world where people actually don't have time to even think about it. It's not even on their radar.
Yeah.
So that's probably where I'm at now, which is trying to make work that still educates, actually.
Yeah.
As well as has artistic integrity. But I'm not always working with dancers anymore. I'm working a lot more with actors, and only this recent project that I'm on, am I back with proper dancers that have dance training. And, I'm bringing back a lot more to that dancing than what I probably had before.
Yeah. And where did you study?
I studied at the University of Western Sydney, Amber.
And what was that like?
That was wonderful. I mean, I was a country girl, grew up in the rainforest out the back of Lismore.
Yeah.
I'd always been pretty active in school and doing Rockers-Tedfords, and I always have the utmost respect for massive Rockers-Tedfords.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my English teacher died that I used to do that with, and I always had this English teacher, Mr. Spray, who would come up with the idea and I would set the movement to it. So I always had this someone else coming up with the ideas behind what I would do, and I loved that collaboration. That was probably one of my first collaborations, was with my English teacher, actually. It was very sad that he died, actually. That's awful, but it's all part of life, death. Anyway, so University of Western Sydney, and I started at Westmead and then went to Kingswood. There was a big music degree there. I think that's still there. The dance degree has since gone. But that's what I did. I loved it. I got to study everything I wanted every day. I missed uni. I'm glad I'm still here.
Yeah. You never leave.
No, I think it's good.
When you graduated, because how long did the course take?
3 years, and only 30 of us got in out of Australia. So it was like a NIDA. It was like a NIDA, a dance NIDA. But Western Sydney were far more futuristic in that there was people in there in our dance course that weren't the most amazing dancers. I was good. I wasn't anything to write. I didn't want to be in Australian ballet or anything. Yeah. But I was a strong dancer. I had facility. I have facility still, but it took in people who were just going to be amazing thinkers, or that they could see would be just creative practitioners of some sort. So it wasn't. I think our course was different to others, and I think there's a few of us still going because of that. Yeah. It wasn't just about how good you were as a dancer or acting like NIDA, but it was still very hard to get into.
And when you graduated after the 3 years, what was your initial inclination as to where to go after that? Because I'm kind of at this crossroads right now where I'm about to graduate.
Yeah, great!
Not like in a couple of months. Yeah. And I'm kind of concerned as to where to go when I do leave uni. And I just want to know, what was your initial idea stepping out of university?
Well, I think I always felt like I had to create my own opportunities. So I never really expected anyone to hand me anything, to be honest. It happened to other students, but it never happened to me, actually. Other students, like Elizabeth, would get into... There was a handful of dance companies at the time that were running probably where we would all go, I suppose. But I always wanted to do my own thing, and I was always very interested in that. So I basically made sure I got a job. I think I started teaching high school dance. I was only a couple of years older than the year 12ers anyway. And that I didn't muck around with that. I basically got thinking about, well, how am I going to earn money? I didn't think too deeply. I just sort of did it. Thinking back, I wasn't all that precious about it, but I did get something there. And then I started to just try and seek out opportunities or create opportunities for myself. And really, I just did dance classes. I just stayed in the loop. It's different for me than for you guys now. Everybody's different and it's complicated, but I do think probably the crux, the most useful thing is that I always kept pushing into new opportunities, and I'm still doing that now. I'm always trying to find ways where I can seek out an opportunity to make work. I don't ever expect to get paid for it. I never got paid. I never expect to get paid for ages. And when we finally we would just make work. We would have an ongoing practice. I think if there's anything that anyone needs to think about, for me it was stay in the dance studio. Just get in that dance studio. Maybe it's twice a week for an hour or two. At the time I had heaps more time on my hands, so I think Fondue did start. I did start to meet with like-minded people to try and form a little group to just create a container for practice.
Yeah.
We had no idea what we were doing, but we did just keep doing. And that, I think, is the key.
Yeah.
So if something does come up, we had a dance question that we were working on. It might have been improvising at the time. We might have been thinking, we might have been playing with how slow can we move? But we would play with that for hours, and then sometimes we'd maybe invite a musician in, or we'd play. We had an ongoing practice. So I think that's what I started to realise is what was needed.
Yeah.
So that's all I ever did. And so when things would come up, workshops would come up, I would do a million workshops. I just used to do heaps of workshops with whatever and whoever. And all those workshops really affected me. And I'm still trying to recreate those workshops now. Almost every class I teach, I'm trying to recreate these workshops that changed me. So opportunities to go and do things. So so in my mind, I'm thinking two things here. I'm thinking what I did, and I'm thinking what I want to tell you.
Yeah.
And so, if I was to encourage you or artists coming out now, merging people, I wouldn't call myself an artist almost yet. I don't think I called myself an artist till I was bloody 15 years down the track, I reckon.
Really?
Yeah, but I think it's really important to think like that now. I've changed that a little bit. We were never allowed to be that until we really put some rungs on the board.
Yeah.
And rungs on the board, that was getting funded. And that was when there was a little bit more funding. But that would never have stopped us. Every project we went for that was for funding, which we did do a few. We always put in. I think it's like put in 9 and get 1, it comes a frisbee. Put in 9, get 1. We always thought, but we'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to do it. If we don't get the money, don't worry, we'll just do it anyway. We never really understood what it would be like to be paid for that anyway. And the pressure was off because we were all working, always had jobs.
Yeah.
So I think probably stay in the studio or wherever that studio is. Mm-hmm. Keep doing so that you keep that practice alive and don't think of it in terms of money. Yeah. I think get money somewhere else somehow. I worked in cafes for bloody years. I kind of wish I was still.
Just for that extra pocket?
Well, just to kind of have a bit more flexibility sometimes. But, I think it's a circle. I don't think it's a trajectory of A to Z. I think it's a circle. You're always still learning. There's no, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. Mm-hmm. This may never it may stay like this forever.
Yeah. And when you went through uni and decided what you wanted to do or what kind of path you wanted to go down, what response did you get from your family? Because my family don't really understand what I do, and that's okay. Like, they still support it as best as they can, but they don't really understand the effect or
of what they're saying to you.
Yeah, exactly. So what was that like?
Well, I think in some ways, Mum and Dad have always been very positive with my dancing, so I never had that. But I can appreciate some of my mates had a similar situation to you. I would say to you, which I'm trying to do now, learn to articulate what it is you do. Talk about what you do, and that helps by writing applications because you have to actually say what it is on earth you do. And even if at the moment it might be something like I create interview situations in order to broaden my own practice and therefore help everyone else broaden theirs. I'm a voice of my own generation. I'm a platform where people can come to me and we can learn together through my action of interviewing people I think that we need to hear their voices. Yeah. So I think what I would say to you with your parents is don't worry too much.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll come around. I think it's been 20 years now and I've finally got my husband's mum. She's turned around. That's because I had to put her in a project so she could see how clever I am and how amazing art can be.
Yeah.
And that was my answer to that. So eventually he put them in there. So they
Very
have no
similar
choice.
to One-Hit Wonders where I've got mum in the space. Like,
show her how clever you are. I think
Yeah.
it's a brilliant thing. But I can't emphasise enough, learn to talk about what you do. Even if you talk about it badly, over time, learn to articulate the power of what you do and why it's important.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
And you have 2 beautiful children. They're just little bundles of sunshine.
They sure are.
And I want to hear your perspective about being a mother and being a hard-working artist, because that's something I will come to consider later in life when I choose to settle down. And what's that process been like, or has it been difficult, or obviously it's been extremely gratifying as well?
Well, I had to take 5 years off, really. I didn't make any work, really.
Yeah.
What I did do is tried to make a half-decent thing before Fred was born. So I've got Audrey, who's 9, and Fred, who's 5. I've basically taken 10 years off. I feel like I'm emerging now once Fred's at school. And I think that it was difficult to begin with, but I feel like you've got to learn to identify with yourself away from your art. And that's what that taught me.
Yeah.
So I am who I am, not who I am because I dance.
Yeah.
Because that won't survive, because I won't be dancing.
Yeah.
So you find ways, if you want to do something, you find ways to do it. I just danced in my kitchen. I started 80s aerobics classes because I was unfit. I found any which way to do it, but I certainly had to put down serious projects. I had to park them, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that the way I raised my kids, which was to be at home with them a bit more, rather than send them to daycare all day, which you definitely could do and keep a practice. So I definitely have girlfriends and mates and colleagues who have sustained an arts practice because they put their kids in daycare. I wasn't too worried about that. I actually wanted to enjoy what kids could teach me.
Yeah.
And instead I do maybe one project every couple of years, if that,
Yeah.
or change the way I work. I didn't give up entirely, but I certainly got out of my own way to try and think I needed to do something. I remember thinking even just maybe once a year for an hour I might get in the studio and roll around, but I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. So I think it affects your practice, and I think you prepare for that. And for Fred, I did a showing of work before he was born, thinking in 5 years' time I'll pick that up.
Yeah.
I also kept a little social profile, making it look as if I was doing heaps of cool things. Just kept a little bit of currency there when maybe I wasn't doing all that much, but I just was conscious of the profile I needed to just sustain a bit.
Yeah.
And I had meetings every now and again. I'd get out and do stuff a bit. Having said that, I enjoyed the break and didn't put too much pressure on myself. Again, to think there was a trajectory. There is no trajectory.
It's just a circle.
It's a bit of a circle. So you create what you do, and in a way you're drilling down a hole the whole time, which is good. So I think that motherhood has done my practice the world of good, absolutely. But it does mean I've missed out on a bit, actually.
Yeah.
But I think I'd had enough anyway. I think I kind of knew everything I needed to know. I think I wanted to know something different.
Yeah.
So probably in a positive way, I just changed the way I worked a bit and took the pressure off myself a little bit without losing the sense that I was still doing stuff.
Yeah.
I maybe showed my head in every now and again. I made it known that I was having a little breather for a bit, but that I would return at some point. And in the end, I kept teaching the whole time anyway. So uni, the work I did was highly creative anyway. It used my practice. So I didn't really ever stop being creative. I just dropped it back to a couple of hours a week or something.
Yeah.
So I think there's a way through, but I think you need to get ready for it.
Definitely. That's good advice for it, because it's something that I think about not often, but like
No, I think you need to. Yeah. I wish I didn't even think about kids till I was like 38. So I'd done a lot of work before I'd had the babies.
Yeah.
On some level, my reputation was established, or that people knew that I could do something, and I knew I could do something. So it sort of bought me a bit of time to have off, I suppose. But again, you do what you want to do. I think you end up doing what you want to do in the end anyway. And if you're not worried about it making too much of an income, then you can just keep making your work. And then as long as you're interested, I think that's really important. But I do think we all need to trade. Probably would have been a different ballgame if I didn't have my uni teaching.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have got my uni teaching if I didn't have my industry practice. So it all sort of, so
intertwines.
It all
yeah,
intertwines.
for sure. And what's been your favourite project you've created? Could be absolutely anything, but I know you've created a multitude of works.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's funny you say that, because when we did the fondue set, we launched ourselves in a pub because all our mates were in the pub. They weren't in the underground spaces that we were doing abstract dance in. They were in the pub. They were all in bands. We were in the world, except our dance that we wanted wasn't in the world. It was in the theatres, and we didn't want to bring everyone to the theatres as much. So that show was called Evening Magic, which is the name of a condom that we found on a trip, and we were like, this is a great name, let's call this show Evening Magic. So that was a site-specific work for the Hopetown pub, which is a huge pub that was slightly a uni bar, I don't know, some rocking place that you're all out all the time. At the end of that night, I went, I've made it. This is it. I'm done. This is like the best thing ever. And what I've been surprised to realise is that then every project after that has just upped the ante a little bit more, just a little bit more and a little bit more. It might have gone to a bigger theatre, or this one was actually funded, or let's involve other people in this, or let's involve a whole pile of bands in this one. Let's get outside. It kind of keeps growing and growing. And my favourite project, they're all so different. It's so hard to have a favourite. But what I can say is, geez, I've enjoyed the ones that have come out of a highly theatrical inside practice and have busted outside to work with people that are not dancers, that are not the same as me.
Yeah.
The ones that are not the same as me have been so enjoyable, and indeed, One Hit Wonders is one of my favourites.
It was a good show.
It was a good show. It's the hardest thing probably I've ever done, running 18 solos like that.
Well, yeah.
It was an ambitious project, but that was my inner artist going, well, you got to get something out of this too, or else you'll dry up.
Mm-hmm.
So I very much enjoyed the range of that, and the sort of the relationship I had there, which was I kind of was in charge, which is very different to the collaborative way of working with the fondue set, where it has to all get through the committee. I enjoyed that freedom. I felt like I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much had I not had the collaborative practice.
Yeah.
So now that collaborative practice has pushed me into my own work, because I'm so enjoying being able to make my own work and do what I want to do,
Yeah.
not what Elizabeth and Jane want. I thoroughly miss the fondue set, and I can't wait for us to do something again, because I feel like we've all learnt new things, and we needed to have a bit of a time to grow away from each other. But I do think the Austinmere Dancing Project, which was this massive flash mob, that sort of changed me, because that had nothing to do with that was everyone who knew nothing about performance.
Yeah.
That was exciting.
That was a great project.
That was a great project, and although it might not be considered for me theatrical in that kind of really detailed way, I felt like I used every skill in my body to try and dumb things down to a point where they still had an artistic edge with people that had never danced before. So I love that. I am working currently on a very big project as well, which I am also loving, which is across Parramatta and Bega with an orchestra. So I have Western Sydney Youth Orchestra, which I've never worked with an orchestra before. I usually use well-known tracks, as you know. And this has got a range of these. I'm back in dances now, but also my dancers are not all contemporary dancers. I've got Polynesian ones, Arabic b-boy, I've got a 10-year-old flamenco, I've got another mega range going on. And with this idea of an orchestra, it means that the soundtrack is quite dense and heavy, and no one knows it, so I can't pull out Betty Davis Eyes or these other tracks or AC/DC that I've maybe used in the past. This project, and this is for so it has a little bit of pressure on me. This is the first time for me as an artist. I'm one of, which is not allowed to be told yet, of course. Oh my gosh. There's an embargo on that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in, not sure. It is in, has to be confirmed. We're hoping that it is. I think it should be. Because of the range, the diversity. I think this one I'm super diverse, and Polynesian kind of dancing and Cook Island dancing, and I'm trying to munt that up a little bit, create a communal body across all those disciplines. So I think in some ways this one I'm working on is super interesting for me, because I'm back in the dance world, and I'm now, instead of dancing with my own body, I'm trying to create a communal body across this range of 16 different kinds of bodies with an orchestra.
Sounds epic.
Plus outside.
Can't wait to check it out. Well, Emma, that's all the time we have.
Oh my gosh, that was great.
Thank you for coming on. Honestly, I can't express enough how much you're just great.
Oh, Amber, thank you so much.
And you have been one of the people while being at uni that has really set me on the path that I am now.
Yeah. I'm loving your path, Amber. You keep going, girl. You just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Hashtag keep going. I mean, I don't think that ever changes.
Keep that duende.
Keep the duende, yeah.
That's what you're going to do.
You need to meet the artist that taught me duende.
There we go.
Jasmine. Thanks, Amber. Well, I think you're doing great.
Anything you want to plug?
Oh, no, I just think for all you guys getting out of uni, just keep your practice. Just keep a practice. Whatever that means to you, keep going. Maybe. And if you have to drop the ball and you feel like you've run out, don't just have a break. Just take a little rest. Don't quit. Maybe if you don't want to, just rest. Take a little rest and get back on deck, and keep around people that can fuel that creativity. I think get your kind of gang on a bit while you can, because there will come a time where there's not that much time and you need to have that done. And also, I think I do really feel like I get exhausted because I give a lot of energy out, but I think it's worth it, because if I don't give that energy out, I don't get it back. And so I think that is also another part of my practice is effort. I feel like I put lots of effort in. I don't slacken off when it comes to face-to-face time. I really try not to, and I think that has really changed how I see work being. What I put in is what I get out. So if I don't put in much, I don't get much out, and I think that's very important for your generation. I think that's a big one.
I agree.
Okay. Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks.